but some worry that it's bubble. So what's your opinion about that?
We always look at the facts. What are the facts? Artificial intelligence is already transforming the way we work, the way we live, the way we communicate with each other. Companies that are on the leading edge are profitable because they are able to sell products they create. So in this sense, the bet on artificial intelligence is underpinned by this profitability, where there are risks. They're twofold. First, spread of artificial intelligence across the economy, in other words, the penetration in other sectors, may be faster or may be slower. We just don't know. If it is slower, then that could create disappointment and fear that maybe it is a bubble. There is psychology that leads to people acting on a groupthink basis. Now they're investing, and if there is a concern, there could be a withdrawal. And that we have identified as financial stability risk. We just have to be very watchful. The second risk is how artificial intelligence is going to impact labor markets. We have done an assessment at the fund, and it shows that in advanced economies, 60% of jobs over the next years will be touched by artificial intelligence, made more productive, sometimes significantly more productive, changed in the way they are being carried out, or eliminated. 60%, this is like a tsunami hitting the labor market. And the question is, are we ready for it? And we urge our members to think thoroughly through the kinds of policies that they need to have in place, both to take advantage of the opportunities of artificial intelligence, but also to manage to mitigate risks. We have created a ranking on AI preparedness, and we look at 4 things: digital infrastructure, labor market flexibility, adaptability, how innovation flows through the economy, and last, regulation and ethics. When we rank countries on these 4 criteria, what we see is that by and large advanced economies are up, some emerging markets as well, but the developing world is way behind. So we face a risk of divergence within countries, some parts of society benefiting much more than others, and we see a risk of divergence across countries. By the way, bravo to Korea. Korea is number 15 in our index, and it has a very holistic way of approaching artificial intelligence.
So what Korea should do to move up to the rank? I worry about we lack labor flexibility.
Labor market reform is one of the reforms Korea should pursue. You need to allow for not only skills to be agile and transferable, but also to have the ease of moving from one area of activity to another, and make sure that AI is contributing to inclusivity in society rather than pushing this divergence I mentioned before. In technological terms, Korea is way ahead. You are main producer of semiconductors. You have technological mindset. It is labor markets, and it is in regulation and ethics where attention has to be more focused.
So the IMF has warned that by 2029, global government debt will reach 123% of GDP. And how serious do you think this debt problem is globally? And do we have to worry about the debt speed in South Korea?
Let's start with the world. Yes, global sovereign debt has gone up significantly. It was driven by the shocks I just talked about, by COVID, by Russia's war in Ukraine, by price increases, by interest rates. That has led to a situation for many countries that requires concerted attention. We recommend gradual fiscal consolidation Why do we ask for it? Because you have to be able to buffer yourself for the next shock to come. And also because servicing government debt takes away precious resources from investing in people, investing in the economy. In contrast to the very high level of debt globally, Korea is in a very good position. Korea's debt is 53%. This is almost half of the global average. And Korea's policymakers are determined to continue on that prudent fiscal path. When we look at projected investments, they are pro-growth investments. They are directed to stimulate the economy. Why? Because growth in Korea for next year we projected to come close to 2%. It can be higher, and it can, as a result, create higher level of government revenues. Of course, way money is being used in different countries is different. In some countries, money is used mostly for consumption. In Korea, money is used to provide more fairness in society, to help more vulnerable parts of society to adapt to pressures coming in this uncertain world. But very important, it is used to invest in what is called here ultra innovation economy. Korea can be proud of the achievements in innovation. What I have seen in this short period of time is very impressive. Innovation is everywhere. Innovation is in shipbuilding, it is in agriculture, it is in urban living, it is even in cosmetics. And that puts Korea in a better position in a world in which technological transformation is very rapid, so you are ahead of the rest of the world.
South Korea is facing many problems like low birth rate and aging population, and we worry that decline in potential economic growth and unflexible labor market and many regulations about over corporations.
Yeah. So
many critics say that structural reform is needed, but some say that there is NATO. NATO is an acronym for no action and talk only. we have that kind of problem. So what do you think about this, and what would you advise the government to tackle these issues?
We had a very good meeting with President Lee yesterday, and the 2 points I brought to his attention as what we at the IMF see as being very positive for Korea's potential growth were exactly structural reforms. Pursue them relentlessly, because if you don't, with this rapidly changing world, you risk to miss on opportunities for people, and do it in a way that is inclusive, that brings ownership of the whole society of these reforms. It is not easy, but we did a study at the IMF, and it shows that when people are engaged, when there is genuine consultation on reforms and clear communication, what is this reform about? For example, why an aging society should pursue pension reforms? Then there is a higher acceptance. And the second recommendation from the fund is do even more of what we have seen here. Cooperate, work with countries to find common solutions to common problems, and also to build that very dynamic pathway that technology presents to the world.
Korean government is pouring money into the economy to boost the economy. I mean, to recover the economy. What do you think about that idea? The government gives money to people to boost the economy.
Well, let's start first with the question: should there be boost for the economy? And in the Korean case, the answer is yes.
Yes.
Korea has gone through a political turbulence that has held growth back. In 2025, we project only 0.8% growth in Korea. This is still good. It shows some recovery, and for next year, the recovery is much stronger. So when you're faced with exogenous shock for the performance of the economy, in this particular case, it was a political turbulence in the country. It is internal for Korea, but it is external for business entities. Then it is wise, if you have fiscal space, to use it. And this is what Korea is doing. We are also encouraging countries to work on identifying ways to better target the use of public money. And that means not only better targeting so the poorer part of society is to benefit, but also to come up with incentives for the wealthier part, rather than just keep the money in passive savings, to invest more actively to generate more growth. And that, I think, is a set of policies that we will have a chance to further discuss with the Korean authorities as part of next year consultation that we have regularly with all countries.
So if you describe the current world, our current change with one word, what would it be? And do you believe we can return to free trade?
The word I would use is transformation. We are in a world in which multiple major forces of transformation are changing the way we interact with each other. We have geopolitics, we have technology, we have demography, we have climate. All these forces are acting at the same time. They are creating more uncertainty, and they are creating more pressure for countries to adapt. When you look at the data on trade, what does it tell us? One, it tells us that still majority of trade is being done under most favored nation rules. 72% of trade between countries is done in that way. Second, it tells us that when we had a major shift in trade policy in the largest economy, majority of the world has chosen not to retaliate. So we did not shift into tit for tat downward spiral. But it also tells us that there are areas where we have not quite yet come to clear rules of the game. E-commerce, trade in services, they're expanding very rapidly, and we need to think how we can reform the way trade is delivering benefits for people. But the bottom line is, trade is like water. You put an obstacle, it goes around it. Thousands of years of history tell us that you can change the direction of the water, you cannot stop its flow.
The US and China have agreed to hold the trade war, but many experts say that is temporary. So what do you evaluate the summit, or what do you think about the summit?
It is very good for the world economy when the two largest economies find a pathway to resolve differences. Yet again, it has shown the value of summits like APEC, brings economies in the same place and creates an avenue for discussion. We haven't yet evaluated more in details what is in the impact of the agreement that has been reached, but very clearly it is positive, and it is a year not only when there would be more trade between these two large economies, but it is also a year when talks can continue. And talking with each other is always the best way to resolve differences.
Do you expect the difference between the US and China will be resolved smoothly?
I do expect that rational policy making would dominate. It always does. And what is in the interest of people in both countries is to have vibrant economies that grow and offer opportunities to businesses and households. And in that sense, yes, I'm optimistic that while differences are inevitable, there is a path to resolve them, and it is called dialogue.
What do you think is the biggest threat to world economy next year or in the coming future?
What we have experienced over the last couple of years since 2020 is very telling. We are in a world of more frequent and severe shocks. And what I expect is that there would be surprises that come from both the decisions of policymakers, by decisions of the business community, and by Mother Nature. We just saw Hurricane Melissa in a different part of the world, in the Caribbean, wiping out the economy of Jamaica. So build strong buffers for shocks to come. Think about the unthinkable and get the economy ready to protect people and protect businesses when the unthinkable happens.
So what's your main takeaway main takeaways?
Most important takeaway is the leadership both Korea and Malaysia have demonstrated in bringing countries together at a more uncertain and difficult time for the world economy. That notion that the pathway for better opportunities for people around the world is cooperation of nations shined in both cases. Here at APEC, go back with three main impressions. First, how much open economies value trade as an engine of growth, and the recognition that we have to seek ways in which this engine, even in a multipolar world, continues to deliver. Second, countries in the APEC region, economies have been quite serious over the last decades to build strong macroeconomic fundamentals. The crises that we have experienced, they led to the value of sound monetary policy, sound fiscal policy, and that foundation at a time of more complexity in the world economy is clearly valued. And three, cooperation, finding pathways to work together to resolve differences that are natural, and yet they should not become the dominant feature. The world is changing very rapidly, and even more so, we need each other.
I think our managing director has said we are in a transformation. Some of the norms and rules so far in the world trading system have been broken. But as she said, it's also an opportunity. Clearly, the United States has so far played a key role. You know, there's a scope now, there are opportunities, reconfiguration.
Lots of people are talking about the reform in China is needed, saying that China's model of overcoming economic crisis through exports is harmful to the world and unsustainable. And do you agree with this kind of argument that China is doing over-exporting, which harms other countries?
I will put it differently. So what we have definitely emphasized the need for economic reforms in China. We have argued that the economic growth model needs to adapt as China moves up the development ladder, moves up to higher income. We have also mentioned that growth is too investment dependent and that there should be an economic rebalancing towards more consumption and services. So that has been a long-standing IMF message to China. If you look at China over the past decade and a half, in much of the 2010s, China had in fact a very exuberant real estate market, relied heavily on real estate investment, real estate growth. That came to an end when the real estate burst, right? And now China experiences a real estate slump. So in a slump, and the domestic economy operates below capacity. So they have economic slack. And I think with economic slack, there is a tendency as part of the adjustment that exports pick up some of the slack, because with the domestic slack, the prices have fallen in China, so China becomes relatively more competitive and has started to export more. So that's part of the adjustment mechanism. And what we have argued last year, the economic counselor and Krishna had a blog where they say, the domestic imbalances or the real estate slump has also led to external imbalances. So these macro factors, the slump in the domestic economy because of real estate and its implication on local government finance, has also led to an over-reliance on export. As a large economy, of course, China then needs to be concerned about the right policy mix to address the domestic slump and bring the economy back into equilibrium. And this cannot just be through exports and rely on the rest of the world. Also need to use fiscal policy. The final point this is a specific crisis. This has happened over the past few years. China has starting to boost the domestic economy. So all the policies we have been recommended, first and foremost, will also benefit China. Then, of course, there will also be positive spillovers.
To boost those kind of domestic demand, what kind of policies would you recommend for Chinese government?
So we have argued for a specific fiscal boost. So we have argued that there is some scope to try to give a sort of traditional boost to the domestic economy. In particular, for example, to give transfers to the rural areas related to pension, healthcare. These they're relatively poor. This will have a substantial multiplier effect. We have then argued that part of the fiscal policy package should be, in particular, reforms to strengthen the social safety net, which we think is underfunded and doesn't have the benefits it needs for a modern economy. And this would foster rebalancing of the economy because it will reduce the need for household to save for a rainy day, the precautionary saving.
That's really important, but are they listening?
We should say China has had a fiscal boost this year. So the overall fiscal deficit has roughly increased by a percentage point of GDP. So that has provided a fiscal boost of a bit less than 1 percentage point of GDP. China has also started to address some of the liquidity or financing issues of local governments, which have had the potential to constrain expenditure by local governments by offering refinancing. So we have said China has taken steps in the right direction, but they should do more. So in the short term, it's a big shock. It can have a material impact. In the longer term, a lot will also depend how countries respond. The fund has emphasized it's important to make economies more resilient, look at ways to strengthen the domestic economy.